Denise Carter had exactly $43 in her checking account and a landlord who had already called twice that morning. She stood behind the counter of the small diner where she had worked for 11 years, refilling coffee cups with a smile that cost her more than anyone could see, when the bell above the door rang and a man in a charcoal suit walked in like he had never once in his life worried about rent. He didn't order anything. He didn't sit down. He simply stood there, staring at her, until the words left him almost like a confession, "I've been looking for you for 20 years." Denise had no idea who he was. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in stories that remind us the world still has good in it, hit like on this video right now, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, share this with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to Kindness Corner so you never miss a story like this one. Denise's life had been built entirely out of showing up. Showing up for her 2 teenage sons after their father left without a word. Showing up for double shifts when the diner was short-staffed. Showing up for a community that quietly leaned on her, even when nobody showed up for her in return. She had learned a long time ago that dreams were a luxury for people who didn't have bills due on the first of the month. So when the stranger introduced himself as Richard Ashford, and the name meant absolutely nothing to her, she assumed he had the wrong woman, the wrong diner, the wrong life entirely. But Richard didn't move. His hands were trembling slightly, the way a man's hands tremble when he has rehearsed a moment in his mind for 2 decades and finally has to live it. He asked if she remembered a shelter on the east side of the city, the one that had closed down years ago, the one where a scared, exhausted 22-year-old girl once spent 3 nights after aging out of foster care with nowhere else to go. Denise's smile faded. Her hands stopped moving over the coffee pot. She remembered that shelter. She remembered those 3 nights better than she remembered most of the years that came after, because they were the loneliest nights of her life. Richard's voice cracked as he explained that he had been a volunteer there, fresh out of college himself, broke in every way that mattered except the one that would come later. He remembered a young woman who had given up her blanket for a crying child she'd never met, who had gone without breakfast so a stranger's baby could eat, who had sat with him in the hallway at 2 in the morning and told him that even when you have nothing, you can still choose to be someone something. He told her that conversation had changed the entire direction of his life. That her words had followed him through business school, through failure, through the sleepless nights building a company from nothing, through every moment he wanted to quit and remembered instead that a girl with less than he had was still choosing kindness. Denise stood frozen, the coffee pot forgotten in her hand, memories she had buried under years of survival rising back to the surface. She had never once thought that a scared girl's small act of decency in a broken shelter could matter to anyone, let alone follow a man for 20 years. She had gone on to build her own quiet, difficult life, never knowing that somewhere out there, someone had been carrying her words like a compass. Richard told her that he had spent years searching, hiring people to trace shelter records long since destroyed, following false leads, nearly giving up more than once, because he needed to find her and say thank you before it was too late to matter. He said the words again, softer this time, not as a stranger's declaration but as a truth finally allowed to land. He had been looking for her for 20 years, not out of obligation, but out of gratitude that had never once faded. For the first time in longer than she could remember, Denise Carter, who had held everyone else together for so long that she had forgotten what it felt like to be seen, allowed herself to cry in front of a customer. Not out of sadness, but out of the overwhelming relief of being remembered. Of mattering. Of learning that a moment she had long dismissed as nothing had, in fact, been everything to someone else. What Richard did next, Denise would later say, was never about the money, though the money changed her sons' futures forever. He didn't offer charity. He offered partnership, insisting on funding a scholarship in her name for young people aging out of foster care, insisting she be the one to run it, because no one understood what those kids needed more than the woman who had once been one of them. He told her that gratitude delayed is not gratitude denied, and that some debts of the heart take 20 years to repay, but they are never forgotten. Denise walked out of that diner for the last time not as an employee escaping poverty, but as a woman finally stepping into a purpose that had been waiting for her the entire time, hidden inside a single act of kindness she had never expected to matter. Her sons would grow up watching their mother build something out of the very pain that once nearly broke her. And somewhere across the city, in shelters not so different from the one where it all began, other scared young people would find a woman waiting for them who understood, better than anyone, that showing up for a stranger can change the course of a life you'll never even know you touched. If this story moved you even a little, if it reminded you that kindness is never wasted, even when we can't see where it lands, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who needs to believe that good still comes back around. Before we go, we'd love to hear from you. Comment below and tell us, has a small act of kindness ever come back to you in a way you never expected? Denise Carter spent 20 years believing her kindness had gone unnoticed into the world, quietly, without consequence. She was wrong. It had been carried, remembered, and returned, 20 years later, by a stranger who never forgot the girl who had nothing, yet still chose to give everything.